Is the Miami Dolphins season already in danger just 3 weeks in? That might sound dramatic, but when you look at the numbers, the history, and the matchup, the answer might be yes. Because in Week 3, Miami isn't just facing a tough opponent. They're going to war against a nightmare. A team that has dominated them for years. A team with no mercy. A team that exploits every weakness. The Buffalo Bills. And here's the situation. Miami is 0-2. The seat underneath head coach Mike McDaniel is heating up for the first time since he got hired. Their defense just gave up 33 points to a rookie quarterback. And now they're flying straight into the teeth of a Buffalo squad that looks like it's ready to blow the doors off someone. If you're a Dolphins fan, this might be the turning point, one way or the other. And here's the part no one talks about. The numbers say Buffalo might not just beat Miami, they might break them. Let's zoom out, because this rivalry has been one-sided for a long time. The Buffalo Bills have won 15 of the last 17 matchups against the Dolphins. Let that sink in. That's not just advantage, that's dominance. They've beaten Miami 6 straight times, including close games, blowouts, and keep you up all night heartbreakers. Even when the Dolphins look good on paper, the Bills walk away with the win. So the stakes in Week 3 aren't just about getting a W. This is about saving the season, shifting the narrative, and finally proving that Miami is more than just a flashy offense that cracks under real pressure. Because let's be honest, it's been a tale of two teams so far. You've got moments of brilliance from Tua Tagovailoa. You've got Tyreek Hill torching defenders. You've got Jalen Waddle making people miss 15 yards downfield. You get those electric plays that go viral 30 seconds after they happen. And yet, Miami is winless. Because for every deep shot and highlight grab, there's a reality fans can't ignore. This team isn't finishing games. They're not stopping anybody. And the pressure? It's rising. Fast. Last week against the Patriots, they looked flat. The defense allowed one too many power drives. Tua took 5 sacks on just 32 attempts. And the offense managed just 20 points. 7 fewer than the Patriots, a team known more for grit than fireworks. Before that, 33 points allowed to the Colts. Not the Chiefs, not the Bills, not the Ravens, the Colts. Meanwhile, Buffalo hasn't just been good, they've been terrifying. 41 points against the Ravens, 30 points on the Jets, a defense many believed was top 5 heading into the season. Josh Allen barely had to try. James Cook ran wild, shaking defenders out of their cleats like he had a cheat code activated. When you break it down, Miami isn't stepping into a rivalry game. They're stepping into a buzzsaw. And the biggest concern? There might not be an easy fix. Miami's secondary is struggling. Their defensive line isn't getting consistent pressure. Their tackling has been exposed in back-to-back games. And even their bright spots, Tyreek, Waddle, Achane, can't do enough when the other side of the ball can't get stops. And now they have to face a team built for moments like this. A team that wins in the trenches. A team with the best dual-threat quarterback in the AFC. A team that doesn't just thrive on momentum, it steals it. Miami isn't just fighting for a win on Sunday. They're fighting for something much bigger. The credibility of their coach, the direction of their season, and the belief in their locker room that they can still compete with elite teams. Because if Buffalo rolls them, if it's another 30-plus point night for the Bills and they hold Miami under 20 again, then suddenly the question won't be, can Miami beat good teams? It'll be, can they even make the playoffs in this loaded AFC? And with the rest of the schedule staring them down, Ravens, Chiefs, Jets, Cowboys, Bills again, the answer might not be what they want. At first glance, the Miami Dolphins offense looks like it's doing just fine. Tua Tagovailoa threw for 315 yards, tossed 2 touchdowns, and posted a 115 passer rating against the Patriots. That's elite production. Almost exactly what you want from your QB. Look deeper though. and you start to see the cracks. Because for all the flashy throws downfield and big-name playmakers, the Dolphins' offense is doing something deadly. It's firing up the highlight reel while falling flat on the scoreboard. Against New England, Miami only put up 20 points. That's not horrific, until you remember they scored 33 points on them last year in Foxborough. And last week, they had every reason to go off. New England's top corner was banged up, the pass rush didn't exactly lead the league in pressure. Miami had rest, high stakes, and something to prove. And what happened? 5 sacks allowed, 1 interception, several drive killers. 0 momentum in the second half. It wasn't that Miami couldn't move the ball. They had 10-yard chunks, explosive plays, and over 400 total yards of offense. But when it came time to finish, it wasn't there. That's the difference between exciting and elite. And this trend isn't new. Go back to their Week 1 game, a shootout loss to the Colts. They put up 33 points and still lost because of sloppy execution, poor clock management, and shaky line play. Their offensive identity is exciting. There's no denying that. You've got Tua hitting across-the-field lasers, Tyreek Hill, still arguably the fastest player in the league, Jalen Waddle, a walking first-down machine, and under-the-radar stud, Devon Achane, who quietly led the team in targets last week and took one to the house for a receiving TD. But here's the twist. You won't find in fantasy stat lines. None of it matters when you can't protect the quarterback. Tua got hit a ton last week. 5 sacks in just 32 pass attempts. That's a sack rate of over 15%, and that's dangerous in every single way, especially with Tua's injury history. You can't afford to have your franchise QB taking these hits. Not behind a line that's now dealing with injuries, miscommunications, and defensive lines that have been living in the backfield. Now here comes Buffalo, already with 4 sacks last week and with a pass rush that's as disciplined as it is dangerous. Tua doesn't just need to be accurate, he needs to be invincible, and that's a big ask. Even Miami's run game is starting to show signs of strain. Rookie sensation Devon Achane went off through the air, but on the ground, just 30 yards on 11 attempts. That's 2.7 yards per carry, behind a line that didn't open up many holes and often looked overwhelmed. As for Raheem Mostert, non-factor, no explosion, no momentum around the edge. Without a credible run game, Tua's best weapon, play action, becomes much easier to counter. And when that happens, Buffalo's secondary starts jumping routes, linebackers get more aggressive, and the Dolphins become predictable. It begs the question no one wants to say out loud. Are the Dolphins just a big play offense or a complete one? Because explosive highlights don't win games against the Bills. You need drives that chew clock. You need rhythm. You need answers on third down. And right now, the Dolphins haven't found them. And let's not ignore one more critical thing. Tua is quietly playing reckless football again. Yes, he's completing passes at a high clip. Yes, his throws are pretty, but he's once again dancing around pressure, holding on to the ball too long, and playing just a little too loose, especially in the red zone. That pick last week, ugly, bad decision, bad read, and it killed a chance to take control in the second half. You cannot do that against Buffalo. You absolutely cannot give them short fields, not when they turn every mistake into 7 points. So now, you combine it all. Fragile quarterback taking too many hits, running game stalling, defense that can't keep up, matchup history working against them. Suddenly, all those offensive stats start to feel like window dressing on a house that's barely standing. Because the reality is this: if Miami doesn't fix the trenches, if Tua doesn't get protection, if they can't play 4 full quarters instead of 1 electric half, they're not a threat. They're just a team that looks great on Twitter and loses on Sundays. Everyone's talking about the Miami Dolphins' offense, the yardage, the highlights, the speed, the playmakers. But you know what nobody's talking about? What's happening on the other side of the ball. Because the reality is, Miami's defense has quietly turned into a crisis. It's not just struggling, it's getting exposed, and Buffalo might be the team that fully rips the bandage off. Let's start with the facts. In Week 1, Miami gave up 33 points to the Indianapolis Colts. Not the Chiefs, not the Bengals, the Colts, led by a rookie quarterback and a serviceable but not elite lineup. Fine, you think, Week 1 jitters. Things tighten up in Week 2, right? Wrong. Fast forward to their next game. The Dolphins give up 26 more points to the New England Patriots, including wide-open throws, long drives, and critical third-down conversions that kept the defense on the field and the game out of reach. If you're counting, that's 59 points allowed in 2 weeks. That's a pace that puts them near the bottom of the league. And here's the kicker. 7 of those 59 came from a Patriots kick return touchdown. So if we're being generous, 52 allowed by the defense. Now let's look at why. This isn't just a case of one bad corner or one soft spot in the run game. Against New England, Miami gave up 230 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, a QBR to Drake May, a rookie, of over 135. Drake May looked comfortable, poised, and under zero pressure for much of the game. He completed passes at over 10 yards per attempt. That's elite. And this came 1 week after Miami made Daniel Jones look like a Pro Bowler too. There's no excuse at this point. Miami's secondary is a step slow and a beat late far too often. People talk about Miami's big play offense, but their defense is quietly giving up big plays just as often, especially on the ground. Against the Patriots, they allowed 4.9 yards per carry to Ramondre Stevenson, gave up 31 yards and a rushing touchdown to quarterback Drake May, couldn't contain runs to the edge, missed tackles all over the place. That's now consecutive games where the Dolphins have been gashed by teams with average, even below average run games. And now, they face James Cook, one of the most explosive backs in the league. And worse, a mobile quarterback nightmare in Josh Allen, who ran for 59 yards last game, with a 40-yard highlight scramble that looked ripped from a video game. If you think Miami containing Josh Allen is just a challenge, think again. It's a mismatch. You'd think if you can't stop the pass and you're struggling against the run, maybe the front seven is at least getting after the quarterback, right? Not really. Sure, they got 3 sacks last week. 1 from Bradley Chubb, 1 from Chop Robinson, and 1 cleanup sack. But come on, 23 pass attempts and only moderate pressure? That's not enough. Against elite teams, you have to disrupt rhythm, collapse the pocket, make quarterbacks uncomfortable. And they haven't shown consistent ability to do that yet. And now, they face Josh Allen, one of the hardest quarterbacks to sack in the NFL. Here's the reality. Allen only took 1 sack last week on 25 attempts. And that was against a defense with significantly more discipline than Miami's. Third downs, long yardage, nothing seems to work. Teams are extending drives, putting together double-digit play series, and wearing the Dolphins' defense down by the third corner. And here's what's worse. Miami isn't forcing turnovers to make up for it. They're not giving the offense short fields. They're just hanging on and eventually giving up breaks. You can get away with that against rookie quarterbacks. You can't get away with that against Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and a confident Bills offensive line. Buffalo doesn't just kill you with home runs. They own the time of possession. Move the ball methodically and force your defense to crack over 4 grueling quarters. And right now, cracking is exactly what Miami's defense does best. If you were designing a football team from scratch, one specifically built to destroy a team like Miami, what would it look like? It would have to be physical in the trenches, balanced between run and pass, defensively ferocious, aggressive in key moments, and led by a quarterback who can beat you with his arm or his legs. Congratulations, you just described the Buffalo Bills, and that's exactly who the Dolphins have to face this week. at the worst possible time. Let's make something clear. Buffalo isn't just a good team. They're a well-oiled machine with every weapon programmed to dismantle what the Dolphins do best and exploit what they do worst. Most teams pass to score. Buffalo passes to intimidate you. Josh Allen doesn't need 350 yards and 5 touchdowns to make his presence felt. Last week, he threw for just 148 yards, and they still dropped 30 points. Why? Because Buffalo doesn't rely on stats. They rely on leverage. They strike when it matters. They move the ball with precision. They kill you with timing, not volume. Just when you feel comfortable, Allen throws a 40-yard dart to a tight end no one had in their fantasy lineup. Or he scrambles for a 3rd and 12 backbreaker when coverage is perfect. You can't scheme for that. You can't game plan for improvisation. You can only hope he makes a mistake. And right now, he's not making many. Sure, Josh Allen's the headline, but let's talk about the guy who's breaking defenses in half, James Cook. Last week, 132 rushing yards, 6.3 yards per carry, multiple runs that left defenders spinning. The guy looked like he had Xbox controller mods. Spin move, stiff arm, cutback, repeat. And if Miami thinks they struggled with Ramondre Stevenson, they haven't seen what a fully unleashed Cook can do behind a confident O-line, with a dual-threat QB spacing the field. This isn't just a bonus for Buffalo, it's a dagger. Now defenses can't overcommit to Allen. Safeties have to play deeper. Linebackers sit in limbo. And boom! Cook hits a crease and rips off a 25-yard run that flips the field. That's dangerous, and it's exactly the type of weapon Miami can't afford to deal with right now. On the flip side, the Buffalo defense doesn't need gimmicks. They line up, hit you in the mouth, and dare you to go deep. They suffocate you, slowly, effectively, methodically. That's the trap. You'll get your 9-yard slant to Waddle. You might hit Tyreek over the middle once for 17. But when your offensive line lets Tua get sacked on 3rd and 5 at midfield, that possession is over. Last week, Buffalo's defense held the Jets to 10 points, and 7 of those were garbage time. Allowed 0 third down conversions, gave up just 2.5 yards per attempt to Justin Fields before he got hurt, allowed only 1 receiver over 9 yards per catch. This is not a defense you want to face when your QB is getting hit, your O-line is slipping, and your offense is 1 injury away from chaos. Watch them on the field. Buffalo's defense plays with urgency in every rep. You don't see broken plays. You don't see freelancing. You see 11 guys flying to the football. And that's not just coaching, that's chemistry. And now they get a Miami offense that's known for speed, but not for grinding drives. They don't milk clock. They don't wear you down. They trade flash for consistency. And Buffalo knows how to capitalize on that. If Tua doesn't have time to set and throw deep, if the screen game gets smothered, if a Chain and Mostert can't hit the edge, what's left? Not much, and the Bills know it. Look, rivalries are one thing, but this matchup has a pattern, and it's ugly for Miami. The Bills have won 15 out of the last 17 games head-to-head. They've won the last 6, and most of them haven't been close. Buffalo plays Miami like they've got something to prove, every single time. That's not a coincidence. This game carries more weight than your average Week 3 tilt. This isn't just about standings. It's about establishing superiority. Buffalo has owned that role for years. And unless Miami hits levels they haven't shown all season, that's not changing Sunday. Bottom line, Buffalo is not just a great team. They are the exact systemic nightmare for a Miami squad still trying to prove it belongs at the grown-ups table. And this Sunday, Buffalo isn't just looking to win. They're looking to remind the Dolphins who runs the AFC East. There's losing, and then there's getting owned. And when it comes to the Miami Dolphins, the Buffalo Bills haven't just had the upper hand. They've been the landlord, the locksmith, and the eviction officer. 15 wins in their last 17 matchups. 6 straight victories, multiple blowouts, a constant presence in Miami's nightmares. This isn't football anymore. This is property management. Let's go back for a second. The last time Miami swept the season series against Buffalo? 2016. Yeah, Star Wars, The Force Awakens was still playing in theaters. Drake had just released Views. Patrick Mahomes wasn't even in the NFL yet. That's how long it's been since Miami controlled this matchup. Since then, it's been all Buffalo, and not just one type of win. They've run the full spectrum, dominating shootouts, defensive shutdowns, blowouts on prime time, even those agonizing close losses where Miami starts hot and Buffalo slams the door shut in the fourth quarter. It's not just that the Bills beat them, it's when they beat them and how. There's a rhythm to it, and it never favors Miami. This is where things get uncomfortable. You don't have to play for the Dolphins to feel it. The moment these two teams line up, you can sense the mental edge. Buffalo walks in with confidence. Miami walks in trying to prove something. And over time, that builds. Players don't just remember losses, they feel them, especially when it's the same opponent ripping your season apart over and over. You don't think that locker room knows the stat? 15 of 17? They absolutely do. And every time they line up against Buffalo, that tiny voice starts to creep in. Here we go again. Let's not forget, some of these Bills wins have had massive consequences for Miami. In 2020, Buffalo embarrassed a playoff hopeful Miami squad 56-26 in Week 17, eliminating them from the postseason. In 2021, with momentum on their side, the Dolphins rolled into Buffalo and got held to 11 points in a 26-11 punch in the face. In last year's December showdown, the Dolphins fought tooth and nail, even leading late, and still, Buffalo closed it with a walk-off field goal. Every time Miami builds hope, Buffalo is right there to shatter it. And that kind of thing, it lingers. It lives rent-free in the back of every coach's head, every coordinator's play sheet, and every fan's fragile optimism. This is what makes it more than just bad luck. You watch these games and see something deeper. Buffalo always looks like the more prepared team. They scheme Miami's weaknesses. They contain the deep shots. They pressure Tua from angles that disrupt his timing, not just his body. They run the perfect screen pass when Miami's edge rushers overcommit. They let Josh Allen use his legs just enough to stretch the defense, then gash them over the middle. It's chess versus checkers. And even when Miami hits a big play, Buffalo rarely flinches. They stay calm, they adjust, and they counter with a momentum-killing drive that flips the field and the narrative. Look, winning your division is the fastest path to the playoffs. That's not just basic NFL logic, it's strategy. And for the past few years, the AFC East has run through Orchard Park. The Bills have bullied the Patriots, they've handled the Jets, and they've owned the Dolphins. That means every loss Miami takes in this matchup costs double. Not just in the standings, but in tiebreakers, playoff seeding, momentum, and even respect. You think teams like Kansas City, Cincinnati, and Baltimore worry about Miami in January? Not if they keep losing to Buffalo in September. Every year, the Dolphins fail to unseat the Bills, it chips away at their credibility, both inside and outside the locker room. This is the scariest part, because another loss isn't just a loss. It's confirmation that the gap hasn't closed, that everything they built in the offseason wasn't enough, that they're still chasing Buffalo's shadow, that their best version is still second place. Whether they say it or not, these games define franchise perception. And if Miami rolls into Buffalo and leaves 0-3, the headlines won't be friendly. Same old Dolphins, McDaniel's system exposed again. Bills rent still due, Miami can't pay. And if you think that doesn't affect how these teams play the next 14 games, think again. This isn't football anymore. This is psychological warfare. And the Bills have all the ammo. If you're a fantasy football manager, this Week 3 matchup feels like paradise. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Tua Tagovailoa, Josh Allen, James Cook, Stephon Diggs. Everywhere you look, there's a big name who can light up the scoreboard. But that's the trap. Because this might be the one where fantasy dreams die and real-life pressure starts burying production. Let's start with the Dolphins side of the ball. Tua Tagovailoa, fantasy star, real-life risk. Tua has been a solid fantasy QB through 2 weeks. He dropped 315 yards and 2 touchdowns on the Patriots last week. Good enough for a 20-plus point performance in most PPR formats. But dig just a little deeper, and you'll find a quarterback who's threading a needle between elite production and utter disaster. Last week alone, took 5 sacks, threw a horrible interception, completed under 65% of his passes, showed serious signs of discomfort when blitzed. If you're a fantasy player, that still might fly. But for the Miami Dolphins coaching staff, that's not just inefficient, that's dangerous. Tua has a history, a very public, very serious one. Every sack he takes is a concern. Every scramble is a red flag. And against a Bills defense that just racked up multiple sacks and 0 third-down conversions allowed, this could be his most punishing test yet. One bad hit, one awkward fall, and your fantasy QB1 could turn into a nightmare. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, big play or bust. Let's talk about the speed demons on the outside. Tyreek Hill is coming off a 109-yard game, including a 47-yard bomb that reminded everyone why cheetahs don't need second chances. Jalen Waddle added 68 yards on fewer targets, but continues to show elite separation and contested catchability. Fantasy, they look gold-plated. Reality, it's complicated. When the Dolphins can't protect Tua, that deep ball turns into a safety blanket out route. And when Buffalo keeps 2 safeties high, as they often do, that big play ceiling starts to shrink. That's why both Tyreek and Waddle are boom or bust this week. They can torch you for 100+ or struggle to break through if Tua doesn't have time to set and deliver. And let's not forget, Buffalo held the Jets receivers to under 50 yards each last week. Their corners may be young, but their system, it works. Devin Achane, fantasy sleeper turned question mark. Devin Achane shocked fantasy owners when he led the Dolphins in targets against New England, racking up 92 receiving yards and a touchdown. But on the ground, 11 carries, just 30 yards, 2.7 per attempt. Now he's going up against a Buffalo defense that limited Breece Hall to 29 yards on 10 carries. If Achane doesn't repeat his receiving output this week, you're banking on a touchdown that may never come. He's a high upside flex at best and a trap play at worst. Josh Allen, fantasy juggernaut in conservative mode? Here's the problem no one's talking about. Josh Allen isn't being asked to be Superman right now. In the last game, he threw for just 148 yards. No touchdowns, no fireworks, just cold, efficient, winning football. You'd love the 59 rushing yards if you started him, but you probably winced at the low pass volume. Against Miami, Buffalo might lean on the same game plan. Let Cook work, let the defense set the tone, and let Allen use his legs only when needed. The upside is always there. He's Josh Allen. But this could be a 20-point floor game with a capped ceiling, especially if the Bills focus on execution more than explosion. Stephon Diggs, Dalton Kincaid, and the Bills supporting cast. Everyone is waiting for Stephon Diggs to explode. He's been steady, but the big game hasn't come yet. And against Miami's unstable secondary, this feels like a golden opportunity. Still, keep your expectations in check. Miami has allowed big games to unknown names, but hasn't let any individual wideout go over 90 yards yet. They shade coverage, they bring late safety help, they swarm the middle. Diggs will get his, but don't be surprised if Gabe Davis, Kincaid, or even James Cook through the air ends up leading the team in production. It's a roll of the dice. Here's what changes everything. This isn't just a fantasy shootout. For Mike McDaniel, this could be the beginning of the hot seat conversation. For Tua, this is a prove-it game, in terms of durability and decision-making. For Buffalo, this is a statement win, the kind that reminds the AFC East who's boss. So even if fantasy owners are hoping for fireworks, the coaches, they're just praying not to get burned. This means more run calls, shorter throws, and safe play calls in tight quarters. All great for team strategy, but murder for fantasy scoring. Bottom line, this game might feel loaded with fantasy potential, and some guys will definitely pop. But the emotions, the stakes, the matchup history? Don't be surprised if highlight reel expectations turn into low-scoring tension, and pressure pushes play calling into conservative territory. This isn't about entertainment now. This is about survival. Let's be clear, this isn't just any Week 3 game. This is Miami versus Buffalo. It's billing itself as a high-powered showdown. But beneath the surface, it's a pressure cooker. And the Dolphins are walking into Orchard Park with the lid barely screwed on. Because when you're 0-2 in the AFC and your third game is against a divisional opponent that's had your number for the better part of a decade, you're not just trying to win a football game. You're trying to save your season. The stakes are bigger than they look. Mathematically, sure, and 0-3 start doesn't automatically eliminate playoff hopes. But inside locker rooms, on the sideline, in front offices, everything changes at 0-3. The tension rises, confidence fades. Doubts that were whispered in training camp suddenly turn into full-blown press conference questions. And for Mike McDaniel, the smooth-talking, offensive-minded head coach who came into the league looking like the next guru, every week that passes without a win chips away at his credibility. He was hired to be genius-level smart, innovative, culture-shifting, results-driven. But guess what? The NFL doesn't care about how creative your plays are if you're losing to your division rival for the 7th straight time. The locker room can't ignore it anymore. It's one thing to lose close games. It's another thing to lose close games again and again to the same team. Players notice. Leaders start to question the message. Young guys start wondering who to follow. Veterans begin preparing for life on another team. Because if the Dolphins go 0-3 with losses to the Colts, Patriots, and Bills, this isn't just a rough stretch. It's a pattern, and patterns get coaches fired. They get quarterbacks replaced. They get prized free agents thinking, maybe I signed here too soon. Buffalo has already done permanent damage to this team's confidence in the past. One more dominant win, that damage might be beyond repair. What's left if they lose? Let's play it out. Let's say the Bills win convincingly, 31-17. Josh Allen dominates. Tua gets sacked 5 times. The run game stalls. Tyreek gets swallowed in zone coverage. Waddle gets shaken up. The defense gives up 400-plus yards. This isn't a stretch. It's happened before. If it happens again, expect the media pressure to skyrocket. The questions start rolling in. What happened to all that explosiveness? Is Mike McDaniel's system one-dimensional? Should Tua be benched to protect his health? Is this just another version of the old Dolphins with faster receivers? National pundits won't just recap the loss, they'll bury the Dolphins, like a trendy stock that flamed out too soon. They'll start comparing Tua to quarterbacks drafted later. They'll start floating names for the next head coach. They'll turn one game into a media firestorm that eats the Dolphins alive. And it doesn't get easier from here. This isn't the kind of game you lose and shake off, because the Dolphins still have to face the Ravens, the Cowboys, the Chiefs, Aaron Rodgers and the Jets twice, and yes, the Bills again down the stretch. That's a gauntlet. And starting 0-3 before you even hit the hardest part of the schedule? That's a playoff dream turning into fool's gold. Flip the script or pay the price. This is Miami's chance to kill the noise, end the streak, punch the bully in the mouth, change the narrative. They don't even need a blowout, just a clean, strategic win. Prove they can finish games, show they can adapt defensively, protect Tua for 4 full quarters. Win a game that matters. Because history only matters if you let it keep repeating. And right now, the Dolphins are one more Bills loss away from defining their identity the exact same way they have for years. Fun team, tons of speed, no staying power. This Week 3 game isn't a what if, it's a tipping point. Win, and the Dolphins get momentum, respect, and relief. Lose, and questions become doubts. Doubts become headlines. And headlines, they change legacies. This might just be a Sunday afternoon showdown to the casual viewer, but for the Miami Dolphins, this is the biggest game of their season. Maybe their most important in the last 5 years. What do you think? Is Miami about to snap the streak and prove they belong? Or are the Bills about to expose them all over again? Drop your predictions below, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and we'll be watching this one closely.